Hey everyone, my name is Lake Parker, and in an attempt to keep track of how I spent my time throughout the last 12 months, I keep a list of all the media I consume throughout the entire year. Media consumption and enjoying art is a large part of what I do in my free time, and it helps me to remember memories tied to things I enjoyed throughout the year by knowing exactly what I read, watched, played, and listened to. The last thing I want to do is forget the things I enjoyed as time goes on, and these videos and lists are my way of remembering. Obviously, there are more important things to remember and celebrate throughout my year than just the media I consumed, and maybe I'll touch on that a bit more at the end. But for now, let's talk about some cool movies and games and whatever else struck a chord with me this year. Normally, YouTube is a big part of what I enjoy watching throughout the year, but I don't know, this year it just didn't really feel the same. I of course still watched a lot of my favorites whenever they would upload, but I just found myself a little more dissatisfied every time I went on YouTube this year. My watch later playlist would keep growing, but I wouldn't be as interested in engaging with it. I don't know, I think I feel a pull within me to spend less time washed with that which makes me comfortable, and YouTube is certainly that thing that keeps me comfortable. Anyways, all of that is to say, I only have a few channels I found this year that really excited me, so let's talk about them. Doodley. Doodley is a channel that I would consider basically perfect. His discussion on animation has helped me to understand more of what goes into the art form so that I can appreciate more thoroughly the things a lot of animated projects are able to achieve. He also helps to educate his audience on a lot of principles behind animation as a whole, and more specifically 3D animation, which is something I have been very keen on learning more about the last couple of years. His videos are also not just informative, but genuinely entertaining and visually pleasing. I really enjoy his style and all the effort that clearly goes into each video he makes. Also, his shorts are some of the best I've seen on the entire platform, which I have to commend because I have not been too impressed by really any channel making shorts. You're an inspiration to me, Doodley. I hope I can make stuff as good as you one day. Ben Kasi. Ben Kasi is truly a comfort channel for me. I know not being able to eat without a YouTube video is kind of a meme, but genuinely, I watch Ben Kasi through most of the meals I spend alone. He just has this clear love for all things Lego and Bionicle, and it brings me back to elementary school talking about new Bionicle sets with my friends. Bionicle is my ramen empire, and there's no one in my life I can talk to about it, so I appreciate Ben for cultivating a space where those thoughts of mine can bounce off of. I love his series where he covers a specific set, showcases some mocks using its pieces, and then shows off some fan revamps of said set. I'm always daydreaming about how I would redesign all kinds of characters, so those videos especially speak to me. I really felt I spent a lot more time gaming this year, which I actually consider to be a good thing. I love games and I rarely let myself have the time to enjoy them, and I place a lot of value in active entertainment as opposed to passive entertainment, so I'm happy I got to have some fun with video games in 2024. Helldivers 2. Man, Helldivers 2 is one of those games where the developers just nailed the gameplay. All the guns feel unique and satisfying. The enemies all offer distinct challenges to where you have to strategize about how exactly you're going to righteously eradicate them. And the core loop is really satisfying. It feels good to go into a mission and try to complete it as thoroughly as possible. The more samples you collect, the more you have to lose if you fail. And it's all wrapped up in a beautifully satirical package, which makes it all the more fun to buy into the power fantasy. With the Illuminate expansion dropping, I can't wait to play a lot more Helldivers in 2025. Enshrouded. With my friends and I seeing Valheim to its end through the Mistlands, we sought out another co-op survival buildcraft type game to replace Valheim before the Ashlands dropped. While Enshrouded couldn't quite fill that Valheim-shaped hole in my heart, it did offer a lot that I liked. I think the RPG mechanics and movement options like the grapple hook and glider are a great addition to the genre. It made it feel more like you were part of an adventure and getting stronger, which is something I wish I felt more in Valheim. However, where I felt Enshrouded could use some work was in its build system. I love the pull that Valheim had on the player to engage with the build and crafting mechanics. That engagement wasn't necessarily required to survive like in other survival games, but new crafting stations and recipes offered enough new tools that would enhance your gameplay experience. And new building materials were always different enough in what they offered to make you feel supported in a new and exciting way with how you could express yourself in your builds. But Enshrouded just doesn't have that same kind of pull. And because of that, I don't ever really feel the need to engage with the building mechanics. I'm more just there to explore and adventure, which isn't a bad thing really, it's just different and not quite to my taste. It makes me feel a little less immersed in the world I'm making a life for myself in, which is a large part of the appeal of this genre to me. I do hope to see Enshrouded continue to evolve with new updates and expansions, and I'm sure my friends and I will return to it after we're finished with the Ashlands and Valheim. Jasant. As someone who enjoys rock climbing, I was impressed with how Jasant captured the feeling of rock climbing with such simple controls. It was really satisfying to actually look along my route and place where my hands should be and consciously decide when to let go of a hold as well. It gave a really immersive quality to the gameplay that just kind of put me in a zen state and helped me to relax and decompress after a long day. Jusant is a game I feel like I'll return to in the future just to live in that world again and unwind, which I can't say about many games. And hopefully that newly announced game Cairn can build upon the climbing mechanics and controls found in Jusant, because I'm already craving another climbing game experience. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2 is such a good time. It really sucks you into its world, and playing with my friends Jorman and Toaster added so much to the experience. They both are very knowledgeable about the history and lore of 40k, so I was getting so much additional context about the settings we were in, the characters and factions we were interacting with, and the weapons we were using. After Dark Tide, Eons of Battle, my cousin starting to play Age of Sigmar, and now this, the pull to pick up some models and get into playing the tabletop game of 40k has never been stronger, and I can feel Toaster several states away cackling as his master plan for me slowly reaches completion. Marvel Rivals. I remember when the first trailers came out for Marvel Rivals, none of my friends seemed too interested. They were all big Overwatch fans back in the day, before the dark times.
It's like the real thing. She tastes like the real thing. Defeat.
And they all kind of had a disinterested, Marvel Overwatch clone kind of reaction when I asked them about it. But as more came out about the game, I was personally getting more and more excited about it. I never had much interest in Overwatch. Competitive online shooters were never really something I was drawn to, but the style and unique character roster of Rivals was really speaking to me. I was there to play right at launch, which I'm never able to do, and it made a great first impression. My queue times for getting into games were non-existent, my connections during matches were rock solid, the game looked and ran great, and it was free. When I heard it was free, I was expecting maybe a handful of characters were unlocked at the start and you need to pay to unlock the rest, or at the very least, there would be some ridiculous paid gacha type mechanics to unlock any of the fun skins. But every character was available here at the start, and honestly the skins in Battle Pass all feel pretty appropriately priced for a free-to-play experience. I love how the game is third person. I always found it strange that Overwatch was first person, considering a large part of the fun in a hero shooter is playing a cool character, and ideally you'd want to see your favorite character in the skins you unlocked as much as possible. So third person feels like a great fit for Rivals. I think it's amazing that Rivals has cross-platform play from the start, and I wish that this was the standard across the industry. It's been great that I can play this game with any of my friends since it's free and available everywhere. Plus, having cross-play and a healthy selection of melee-based characters is perfect for someone like me who traditionally completely sucks at aiming and is using a controller. In its first week of launch, I played like 25 hours of Rivals, which is a lot for me. It's a lot for anyone, honestly. And if NetEase Games keeps up with the support and new content, I'll keep playing this game for a long, long time. Like every year, I didn't read nearly as much as I wanted to in 2024. And I'll actually skip over a few books I did read because I want to cover them more in depth in a different video in the future. But for now, there's still a few things I want to share my thoughts on. Chainsaw Man, volumes 1 through 11. Reading the first arc of Chainsaw Man was some of the most fun I had reading all year. Fujimoto's character designs are so metal and a joy to look at in action. But what impressed me most is that Chainsaw Man isn't just fun, over-the-top violence and dark humor, because it actually feels at its most effective when it leans into the horror. For example, the part where they go to hell was by far my favorite in the whole story, and the artwork from this scene is so twisted and striking that it's stuck with me long after I put down the volume. I'm excited to come back to Chainsaw Man and check out what else it has to offer past volume 11. Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment. Speaking of going to hell, I also read Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment this year. With all the different projects hyping up Doctor Doom for the MCU, I had the character on my mind a lot and wanted to check out some of his best stories. Triumph and Torment by Roger Stern and Mike Mignola was one that I saw a lot of people talk about, and the premise alone had me sold on it. Doctor Doom seeks out Doctor Strange to aid him in rescuing his mother's soul from hell, and the dark journey that ensues really gives a lot of insight to Doom's character that left me wanting to dive further into his history and find even more stories where the monarch of Latveria shines. Mignola's detailed penciling lends a sorrowful, gothic vibe to the story, complementing Mark Badger's heavy inks and saturated, almost sickly colors perfectly. I was honestly so impressed with the art that I think I'm going to check out some Hellboy soon and see exactly what kind of gold Mignola was creating for that book. X-Men by Chris Claremont. I fell down an X-Men rabbit hole this year and have been reading the Chris Claremont run of X-Men comics to give me proper context for all the future stories that have caught my curiosity. I haven't gotten too far yet, but I'm loving the soap opera storytelling of it so far. I think it'd be fun to cover his run in the form of shorts or something on this channel the more I read, so who knows, maybe keep an eye out for that. Ultimate Spider-Man, absolute DC. 2024 marks the first year I've ever signed up for a pull list at my local comic store, and it's been a lot of fun actually following a title as it comes out in single issues rather than picking up the collected editions after a run is finished. I'm loving how Ultimate Spider-Man is giving us a chance to see Peter all grown up when the main 616 Amazing Spider-Man title refuses to let him do so. Also, Marco Cicchetto draws Spider-Man perfectly, and his art has been a major part of the appeal of this title in my opinion. And while the absolute DC universe is just getting started, I'm already loving what I see. The Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman titles are all hardcore and edgy, but in a way where it doesn't feel silly or too over the top. Absolute Batman may be having the most fun with its giant, pissed off Batman, but really that's not that far off the mark from how Batman is usually characterized. So I think I'm more interested in how this nomad Superman and infernal Wonder Woman will evolve as the story progresses, since they feel so radically different from their classic characterizations. I engaged a lot more with singles from different artists this year rather than exploring a bunch of different albums, so I think I'm going to do a rapid fire round of the music like I did last year. I honestly surprised myself with how 2 songs off Eternal Sunshine made my top 5 most listened to songs at the end of the year, that being Eternal Sunshine and We Can't Be Friends. What can I say? This is a really solid pop record. As a diehard Brockhampton fan, I have been having a lot of fun following a lot of the solo work coming out from the boys since the band split up. I always thought Matt Champion was one of the weaker performers in Brockhampton, so I wasn't too excited for Mika's Laundry, his first solo album. But man, this album completely caught me off guard. It is a no-skip album with a fun and varied energy throughout the whole thing. He completely outdid all the other solo work coming from ex-Brockhampton members and brought in some features that really helped to elevate his sound. Slow Motion brings in Jenny of Blackpink fame, and it is one of the best songs I heard all year. And Aphid featuring Dijon is undoubtedly my favorite song of 2024. Definitely check out the album. I, like many others, was listening non-stop to Chapel Roan this year. I feel like this album is an instant classic, with every single song off it completely working on its own and feeling like they could all be a radio hit. It honestly reminds me of Katy Perry's Teenage Dream, where you could come back to every song over and over again for years to come. Of course, Charlie XCX completely killed it this year too. Brat has banger after banger, and after how much I enjoyed Crash and now Brat, I will definitely be keeping a closer eye on Charlie's releases in the future. The hype leading up to the release of Smile was such a blast. When Cheerleader dropped, my group chat with my friends was blowing up, and I literally walked out of my workout so I could listen to it in the hallway. Every drop was like that up until the full album's release, and I was not disappointed when it did finally all come out. I think my favorite songs off it are Mona Lisa and Kitsune-san. I listened to Alden non-stop this year. Every single song of his is all stylistically really similar, yet always feels so distinct from one another. Swim, Do or Die, and Tell Me What You Want are some of my favorites, and they're all great songs to introduce you to his music. The Beaches is another group whose music I always had on in 2024. Their lead singer has such a unique voice, and I love the attitude and energy to all their songs. Blame Brett, Shower Beer, and I'll Grow Up Tomorrow are some of their catchiest hits. Lastly, I have been checking out a ton of Microwave's work this year too. I am all for the emo, punk rock type sound, and even within that sound, there's a lot of variety to Microwave's music. My favorite song from them is Float to the Top. Like every year, I watched a lot of good stuff in 2024, but I don't have a lot to say about most of it. So let's go over some of the stuff that really resonated with me, and maybe this will be a shorter section than my other previous year-end videos. Tar. Tar may be one of the single most impressive character studies I've ever seen. Cate Blanchett is electric as Lydia Tar. Her performance is so exact and precise that it makes Lydia feel real, which adds so much gravity to the person she is and makes her actions feel deadly plausible from someone with her status in the real world. Tar would already be a fantastic film if it were solely carried by its captivating script and performance, but there's also this unusual element of psychological horror that adds this blanket of unease to the entire film that I don't know if I've ever really seen before in a character-focused drama like this. And on top of all of that, Monster Hunter of all things also cameos in this movie, which makes it an automatic 10 out of 10 for me. The Bad Batch, seasons 1 through 2. The Bad Batch didn't really grab me in the first season, but I'm glad I came back to it for its second and final season. As a longtime Star Wars fan, it's always fun to see its history fleshed out with each new piece of canon. And what happened to the clones as the Republic transitioned into the Empire is something that I'm glad we got to see explored, because it's an interesting question. This era in the Star Wars timeline is awfully bleak, especially from a clone's perspective, and the Bad Batch adds to the epic tragedy of the clone army in a really memorable way. I think the episode The Outpost from season 2 may be one of the best single episodes of Star Wars animation ever. I really think it's worth checking out for all Star Wars fans. Titan. I really don't know what to say about Titan other than that it may be the craziest thing I've ever watched. It presents itself as this dark, mechanical, body horror type experience before shifting into something else entirely. I still to this day don't know how I feel about it. Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Oh, God. I've got a lot of thoughts about Netflix's live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but honestly, I don't think I want to go into all of that here. I might give it a rewatch and a proper video closer to the release of the second season. I will say I like the cast at least. That's something. Blue Eye Samurai. If you want to watch a stylish, animated action series for adults, I think Netflix's Blue Eye Samurai is worth your time. It has some really scummy villains that you just want to see get murdered in a horrible way. And this show has a lot of fun with that bloodlust. Chungking Express. Chungking Express was one of those perfect vibes movies. I just sat back and let myself be awash with the absolutely stellar cinematography. Society of the Snow. Society of the Snow is based on a true story of survival, and I remember sitting through it thinking, wow, I hate this. It's just so unbearably grim and raw with no reprieve. But that is so clearly the intent of the movie that I have to commend it for how effective it is. It makes you sit there and endure this tragedy with these characters that were real people, and the magnitude of their suffering is felt loud and clear with how it's presented to you. But the way this ends, and what it has to say about the human spirit, left me so emotional in a way I wouldn't have been if the movie had not forced me to be so uncomfortable. It was a very cathartic experience. Bottoms. Bottoms was easily the funniest movie I watched all year. I love absurdist comedies, and Bottoms just joined up with Hot Rod for one of my favorite comedies of all time. The Curse. I had only ever known Nathan Fielder through the character he would play on Nathan For You, so to see him come together with Benny Safdie and Emma Stone for this drama series was quite the surprise. The Curse is one of those shows that gives you a really intimate look into a small corner of the world. In this case, the lives of reality TV stars. It's shot in a way as if the camera is peering into the privacy of these characters, always capturing the grossest and most honest parts of their lives, the lens slightly obscured by whatever object the camera is lurking behind to stay unseen. It creates this really uncomfortable feeling while watching the show, but also makes you all the more empathetic to these complicated and flawed characters, as there's no secrets that can be kept from your omniscient gaze. And of course, with it being Nathan Fielder, there are some stellar moments of awkward humor that had me crying laughing. The Oscars. The Holdovers, Past Lives, and Poor Things. I watched Barbie and Oppenheimer when they came out, and I attempted to watch the other movies that were up for Best Picture from this year's Oscars, but I only ended up watching 3. The Holdovers, Past Lives, and Poor Things. The Holdovers was really cute and wholesome, and may end up being a movie I return to during the holiday season in the future. It gave a really warm and fuzzy feeling that is perfect for that time of year. I don't have as much to say about Poor Things. Visually, I really loved the art direction and sets. It felt like stepping into the world of a musical. The performances were all really good, except for Mark Ruffalo for some reason. It felt really unnatural in this movie. I don't know. But the story just didn't quite gel with me. Past Lives, though, completely knocked me on my ass. This movie was one of my favorite movies I watched all year. It was shot on 35mm film by cinematographer Shabir Kirkner, and I was completely blown away by how it looked. There's a lot of blues in the color palette of Past Lives, and I don't know the exact technical way to say this, but the blues are colored in such a way that gives them a really soft and warm quality. And the choice to go 35mm lends a gentle and nostalgic look to the whole movie. Past Lives feels like the most mature love story I've ever seen, facing the hard realities of love that I feel many movies on this subject tend to ignore. The score is rich with that sense of longing, the final track especially being one I've listened to many times since. And the ending left me sobbing into my hands. Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and The Phantom Menace in theaters. I had the chance to revisit some childhood favorites in theaters this year, which was a real treat since I had never seen the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies or The Phantom Menace in theaters before. The Spider-Man movies in particular are some of my favorite movies ever, so to get to see them on the big screen for the first time was really special. It's amazing that the spectacle still holds up 20 years later, and even outshines a lot of modern superhero movies with action so memorable, it still hasn't been outdone by even the 5 other live-action Spider-Man movies that have come since. And seeing The Phantom Menace was a treat too. This movie is not nearly as bad as years and years of internet discourse would have you believe. The special effects and imagination on display here are next level, and I really enjoyed reading Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray before watching Phantom Menace. It gave a lot of characterization to Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan that admittedly was missing in the actual movie itself. One thing that I hated about these theatrical re-releases though was the audience. For some reason, several people were just saying out loud all the lines that have been memed over the years, and that was incredibly frustrating. I swear, when it comes time for the Revenge of the Sith re-release, and I have to listen to every memed line being repeated back by the audience, I'm going to lose it. I paid to watch a movie, not be part of some live interactable Reddit post. Challengers. All right, hear me out. Challengers is the best live-action anime I've ever seen. I don't know if Luca Guadagnino was actually influenced by anime in any way, but the heightened drama and super intensity of the tennis sequences and the way the characters' stories were unveiled through flashbacks during the main tennis match felt like I was watching a sports anime. And I mean that in the best way. I Saw the TV Glow. The mood and soundtrack of I Saw the TV Glow is what got me interested in it. And in those aspects, the movie is incredible. There were some directorial choices made throughout the movie that felt a little almost amateurish to me, and the performances feel kind of all over the place. But once the metaphor sinks in, it was really gratifying enjoying the movie through that lens. And the ending was so shocking, so horrifying that it really stuck with me. Transformers 1. Transformers has always been present in my life in one way or another, and I've always had a passing interest in the brand, but I never really fell in love with Transformers until Transformers 1. This movie was a million times better than the marketing led me to believe, and I can't wait to see where it goes in future installments. It was so good, it has me checking out other Transformers stories and even the figures, so hopefully that all doesn't spiral out of control for me. The Wild Robot. The Wild Robot was a delightful time at the movies. I love how DreamWorks has really been pushing unique art styles for a lot of their most recent movies, and The Wild Robot was so heartwarming and sincere that I had tears streaming down my face for much of the film. This is an easy recommendation to anyone watching this video. Go check it out. Another year has come to an end, and it's made for an interesting year to look back on. I had this pretty intense, motivating drive towards the end of 2023 that carried me through 2024. I had been so caught up in work and rotting away with my phone the last couple of years that I really wanted to take some time to invest in myself this year. And while I didn't get to invest as much in learning and developing new skills like I said I wanted to in my last video, I did make some major progress on a lot of things I had been meaning to address in my personal life. For example, I have never been so focused at the gym as I was for much of 2024, resulting in me being the biggest and strongest I think I have ever been. I finally sought out some medical and physical solutions to some of my insecurities like my skin and teeth, and it feels so good to no longer have to notice those parts of myself in a negative way when I look in the mirror anymore. I spent a lot of time trying to actively be more patient, hopeful, and understanding this year, and while I don't always live up to these qualities, I find it's not as difficult to embody these traits as in years past. This conscious attempt to improve myself in these areas has allowed me to be closer to the people I want to be close with, and has helped me to be more vulnerable with them when I need to be, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And one of my favorite ways I've invested in myself this year is finally making some tangible progress with an old project of mine that I've wanted to commit to for a long, long time. And besides consuming art and media and investing in myself, I did also get to do a few cool things in 2024 too. With all the excitement around Porter Robinson's newest album, it only felt right to join my friends in seeing him in concert for his Smile World Tour. It was my first time seeing Porter and my first time being to Red Rocks, which for a longtime Porter fan and Coloradan, it was a very special experience. Oh, and I went to Korea to visit my friend Toaster this summer, and it was amazing. I've never traveled that far to that foreign of a place on my own before, and the whole experience definitely made me realize I was an adult now. I mean, I clearly have been for a long time, but knowing I'm capable of something like that really cemented it in my head. 2024 will be remembered as a special year for me for many reasons, not the least of which is a pretty major change in my life that leaves me more excited than I've ever been about the future. Wow. Another year over and gone. Reflecting back on my year leaves me with a lot of gratitude. I'm so grateful to be alive, to have amazing, generous, caring people who love me, to be able to support myself, to have a space to call my own, to have a drive to do the most with the time I have. There's a lot that I'm lucky to have, and I don't ever want to forget that. Thank you for spending some of your time to watch something that I made. I'm grateful for that too. I hope you all had a good 2024, and I'll see you again next year.